Good afternoon, one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure in introducing our guest for today's session, Aijaz Amirani. She's a cybersecurity solutioning consultant having experience of over 11 years in the field. She has completed her BE from in computer science and is certified with CyberArk PAS and RSA via LNG. She is presently working in TCS since 2019. Her key competencies include IAM's consultancy, functionally trained in CyberArk, SailPoint, RSA, Okta, and One Login with focus in management and access governance. She has been honored with many awards. A few of them to name with is Technical Excellence Award in 2021 and Star Performance for the year 2018 and 2019 for bagging large sale. Okay, she has a quite lot on her plate and we have a very less time to accumulate that. We are very happy to have you with us, Aijaz. And I hope.
Thank you for that humble introduction. So I have been a 2009 pass out of GIT and I'm an alumni of this great institute. I am highly honored for allowing me to give this opportunity to speak at this forum. I have been working, as you mentioned, I've been working in this field in cybersecurity for over 11 years now, and my specialty is identity and access management. And I look into the Europe region where I design solutions for them, architect solutions for the European customers for TCS. Today, we are going to talk about the Zero Trust Security Model. In my understanding, there was another session that was held on 22nd as a part of this program where one other gentleman had taken up this topic about Zero Trust Security Model and how Cisco is helping mitigate the challenges that are arising in today's modern times. The focus of this, however, this particular session that I'm going to take is talk about it from a more layman's language to help people who are aspiring to be cybersecurity specialists, students, to understand why this model was brought into picture in the first place, how it is actually expected to be implemented. It is not tool-centric, and how the dynamics of cybersecurity is going to change in the next forthcoming years, which the students of this organization will be a part of, right? So let's get started. So these are some of the points that I'll be walking through: background of how we got here, what zero trust is not and what it should be, what are the best practices and key principles of zero trust architecture, and a case study. Okay, so let's get started. How did we get here, right? How did zero trust came into picture to begin with? This is how businesses used to work. This is the yesterday's business model, right? Businesses primarily ran on a model of inherent trust. Now, what is inherent trust? So when I joined my organization about 10 years ago, the way the organization used to run is, once I enter my office building, I will have access to all my applications. I can do my job as usual. And there is absolutely no disruption to my work whatsoever, right? But if I suppose happen to take a sick leave, or I have to travel, right, for work, right, there was to be a lot of challenge in accessing my data, in accessing emails, in order for me to do work, because businesses were so enclosed in, and they did not allow any sort of data to be shared outside their network, right? So it should be very difficult and a cumbersome task to get things done if you have not reached your office on time, right? This is something what the business used to be like, or most businesses used to be like, right? Used to have your wired desktops and laptops. If you worked in a fancy organization, then you would have a guest Wi-Fi, but otherwise you would use those LAN cables connected to your machines. You would have photocopiers, and you would have the standard applications within your organization, that is your email, your office apps, storage and back office applications like, HR applications, SAP applications, timesheet applications, and so on and so forth, and enterprise applications. So your Active Directory, SAP applications, identity and access management applications, all of this, everything would be resided and hosted within the office premises, right? So there would be one server room which used to have a restricted access, and it used to be constantly be under air conditioning because those servers cannot get heated up. There used to be policies around, who can access the server room, who cannot access the server, and everything used to be like one giant box. So everything was perimeterized. Okay, and this is what I saw myself getting into when I joined my organization. Over the period of years, right, when cloud came and started being adopted by many organizations, with cloud, fast speed internet, changes in the model of how people used to access information, changes in technology, right? There was a lot of changes in the way organization, so this is something what any organization, for us in my organization, would look like, right? Now there are fewer desktops and those wired machines, right, with the CPU and those boxes. Only support staff will use that, right? Most of the employees will have a laptop. Managements will have tablets and Chromebooks because they need to travel, they need to go present to customers, right? BYOD came into the picture, right? And a lot of the applications that were hosted on premise. So think of a time where we were used to use Lotus Notes, IBM Lotus Notes as an application to perform emails, right? And from there we moved to Office 365, right? It felt like we moved from caveman days to modern days. That was an enlightenment. Oh my God, emails can be so much easier, right? And you could access your emails from home. You could access your emails from your mobile phone. Everything was managed well. There was a device management that came into picture. A lot of office applications moved on the cloud. So it allowed a lot of freedom to the employees. It allowed a lot of productivity to the employees to work in a more agile way, right? So if I used to remember when I used to travel a couple of years ago, and if I had to travel from my office to customer's office, or if a vendor came to my office, we used to use those photon cards because nobody will give us access to the corporate land because then it is a breach, right? And then we had to carry those photon cards and then connect to the internet because you wouldn't have, and even mobiles wouldn't have that fast internet to share that kind of network, correct? And then slowly when the internet speed increases, and we brought in guest Wi-Fi. So now if a contractor comes into your office, he can connect to a guest Wi-Fi without accessing the intranet of the organization, right? But that did not mean that everything moved to the cloud, right? Still a lot of legacy applications still stayed on premise. So we had Active Directory, SAP system, legacy IAM systems, firewalls, gateways still were there in the picture, right? But the perimeter that was defined started to haze out a bit, right? What was there before? It was a strong fort that I showed in the first slide, right? From there, we moved here, wherein you have moved to modern ways of working, but now because you're moving in modern ways of working, it is starting affecting the security. Because now what you're going to do is, okay, if I brought a new solution into my organization, I will do a band-aid fix. Okay, like just put some sort of control in front of it to ensure that we are looking at the security aspect as and when things come along, right? Not looking at security holistically, right? Then what happened? Okay, so this is how we are. Okay? Tomorrow's business. This is how tomorrow's businesses are going to look like, right? What has changed, right? Pandemic came, right? Pandemic came, coronavirus came. Thanks to that virus, we started working from home, and now overnight, organizations had to move a lot of machines to people's home, give buy them laptops overnight, ensure security, right? Find new ways of working, help people be more productive while they are at home. Now there is no IT staff. Like, okay, some problem with my laptop, I'll just walk into the IT department and like, oh, isko fix kar do. Now there is no IT person, right? Now we'll have to find innovative ways to engage with the IT team, right? And now, while even the pandemic has slowly starting to die out, this has become the new norm. People don't want to go back to office. People find this more comfortable to work, right? And the newer trends that are coming, right? The new startups, that tech startups that come, they don't have the money to buy large offices. They don't have the money to run servers and other things, right? They are completely on the internet, right? How they don't have a perimeter defined to begin with, right? Internet is what their perimeter is, right? And internet has no boundaries. So how organizations, and so this is something that is going to happen, that is bound to happen, right? Cloud people, a lot of organization, banks, banking, finance companies used to stay away from the fact that no, we don't want to move to the cloud. We like the box sitting in our environment. We should be able to see that there is a box in our organization, right? They used to be very stringent, strict with what they want to do. But cloud is evident, right? If they don't move to the cloud, they will never have access to the applications, the innovations that are coming, and they are all coming on the internet, not on the intranet, right? And the new modern ways of working, right? People are expected to work from a cafe, people are expected to work from an airport, people are expected to work from a holiday home. A lot of people move to holiday homes, people are going to Goa and working, right? How is that going to happen? How is that going to work? What happens to security, right? When there is no perimeterization, right? That was a model which we first began with, right? And we cannot continue to put band-aid solutions to solve the problems, right? A lot of services have become outsourced, right? Organizations don't want to manage printers, right? It's a headache to manage printers. There are so many printers. You change the printer color. If there is a problem, you have to call the person, he'll come and fix it. It's a lot of work, right? And with reducing your carbon footprint, those kind of programs the organization take up, you don't even need as many printers that you used to use about 5 years ago, right? So a lot of things are changing. That's one. Second is a lot of OT systems are coming into the environment, right? What is OT system, right? Operational technology system. So a lot of manufacturing plants. So earlier manufacturing companies wouldn't used to put their systems. So the systems that run the plants, the operating systems that run their plants, they are not the standard Windows operating system. They run on very specialized technology that is meant to run those systems, right? And those systems are privileged systems. They shouldn't be given access to anybody or everybody, right? But people have found ways to get into and tap into those technologies and disrupt businesses. In a recent, recently there were 2 attacks that happened in US and that happened in 2021. One was for an oil, oil company which used to transport oil to several states of United States, and there was the other one which was a meat packaging company, right? Both of them, these are not some companies that you would have heard, oh, why would somebody hack into a meat packing business, or why would somebody hack into an oil shipping business, right? But these are also have become targets of ransomware attacks in the recent times, right? Because now people are tapping into OT systems and trying to hack them and take a lump sum amount and by disrupting their businesses, right? In this pandemic alone, the number of ransomware attacks were increased by 500 times. That is an enormous number of ransomware attacks happened. Why? Because no business was ready to move to the cloud. If you ask businesses to move to the cloud overnight, they wouldn't have the time to ensure security, to bring in security technologies. And now that because it has become a norm, a lot of organizations have been pushed, a lot of laws are being brought in to ensure that security is looked into in a more defined way, right? The way security was looked at, at least before the pandemic, right? A customer used to come to us only because there is an audit. There is an audit. I don't know what to show the auditor. The auditor is going to ask us X, Y, Z. We need to be prepared before the audit. This is how security used to be. We think like, oh, security has to be taken up like the first thing on hand, right? No, that is not how security actually works in the business, because businesses want to focus on what they are delivering to the customer. A retail company will think, oh, I need to work on marketing. I need to produce good quality clothes. I need to run my business. Security is the last thing I want to look at. And they'll have the smallest budget for security, but they will expect a world-class security system, right? This is not how security should be looked at, but the pandemic has forced people to look at it otherwise. Let me know if I'm talking too fast, too slow. Otherwise, I will reduce my pace. Now, zero trust did not start something in the pandemic, right? This was something that was defined in 2004. That's a lot of time, right? So this company, Jeco Forum, was a group of people who defined and promoted deperimeterization. So earlier, before even the word zero trust was coined, it was called deperimeterization, right? The idea was to forget the perimeter that you are defining and start looking at it in a different way, right? Forrester, which is a leading researcher for cybersecurity, said they came up with the term zero trust in 2010. In 2014, Google implemented the zero trust architecture for their employees. Why did they do it? Because they had an attack that had happened within their organization, and to mitigate it, they thought that the best way is to now look at deperimeterization, and their architecture is called as Beyond Code. So you can look it over the internet. They have the case study already published on the internet, so you can have a read to it, because it's quite a comprehensive documentation that you can look at as how Google has adopted zero trust. Right. Slowly after that, a lot of pace was picked up, and Gartner then published the CARTA, that is continuously adaptive risk and assessment. And zero trust is all about that, right? You continuously need to authenticate, authorize, identify the risk, and continue that cycle. You never stop, right? In a parameterized environment, you just stop at the door. It's like an airport lobby, right? Once you get your boarding pass and you get into the lounge, nobody's going to ask you anything after that. Once you finish your security, you're done. You can chill and relax till you catch a flight, right? That is how the model used to work, right? But that shouldn't be the case. You should constantly continue to verify, authenticate, and authorize, right? And then finally, Forrester came up with this Zero Trust X document, which looked at different scenarios of zero trust security. It's a comprehensive documentation. I tried to pick up a few principles from them there and put it across in this presentation today for you to understand in a more simplistic language, because there's a lot of information available there. And the NIST finally published this zero trust architecture, which is available under the 800-207 document, right? So now that 5G is going to come, IoT is going to be the next big adoption across all industries. So it is imperative that businesses should start adopting zero trust. Any questions? All right, if no further questions.
Ma'am, we don't have any questions for now. We can go ahead and later we can take up, ma'am.
So what zero trust is not and what it should be, right? There's a lot of confusion within the industry, right? That zero trust is a tool, right? Zero trust is a architecture. Zero trust is not an architecture. Zero trust is not a tool, right? But if you open any leading vendor's website, they will write zero trust will be on the first page. You open Beyond Trust, you open Cisco, you open Microsoft. Everybody is publishing zero trust as if that is a functionality that their tool is offering. Is that the right way to interpret it? No. Zero trust is a function, is a set of guiding principles, right? But the thing is, the way zero trust has picked up recently, it is like the new AI, right? For a while, everybody was selling AI, right? Our tool has artificial intelligence, our tool can do analytics, our tool can do threat detection. Everybody was selling that. Zero trust, everybody is selling zero trust, right? But it is, you need to make that, you need to understand that zero trust is not a tool, okay? So it is not an off-the-shelf product. It is not about trusting no one, right? So a lot of people say that, you need to think that there is already an insider within your organization and you should go with that mindset. Do that. It's a next generation perimeter. It is not about defining a bigger perimeter around the internet. No, it is not that, right? It is VPN modernization. No, it is not VPN modernization, and VPN should now become obsolete, right? It was an IT only project. It cannot be an IT only project, right? A lot of us, including me, when I joined my company or when I joined cybersecurity, I used to think that cybersecurity is only IT teams department's job, right? What will the business do? They don't understand anything, but it is not the case, right? The business needs to adopt that cybersecurity. If my business pushes me to use multi-factor authentication, then jhakmarke I have to use an MFA. Right? I have no other choice. But if an IT department guy is coming and nagging me every day in the morning that Aijaz, you need to change your password, I'll be like, kal karenge, please come to me tomorrow, right? But if there is a push from the organization that you need to change your password every 30 days, they're enforcing those policies on you. You are asked to perform in a certain way, in a certain secure way, follow the right policies, follow the right sensitization towards data. That is a business call. The business needs to push it, right? It is not a one-off project that, okay, once we establish zero trust, we don't need we don't have to look at that project. No, it is not like Microsoft Office implementation. Ek baar kar diya, fir, don't have to worry about it. No, it is a constant work. It's a constant cycle. As and when your perimeter continues to grow, you need to continuously keep a track of how your perimeter is growing. What are the attack surfaces? And how can you put controls in order to ensure that the attack is to the minimum, the damage is to the minimum, right? So it is not a IT only project. It is not a one-off project, and it is not about eliminating intranet, because smaller businesses, yes, startups can go to internet completely. Uber is completely on internet, right? But a lot of organizations, big organization, BFSI customers, banks, SBI, HDFC, Deutsche Bank, these banks have so much of infrastructure already invested in. You can ask them to please just put it in the bin and you start over again. A lot of money has gone into it, right? So then you have to look at it, okay, how can I have a hybrid model where I can still put the policies or enforce the policies on the intranet as if it was internet? And then start from there. See how we can reuse the solutions and functions that they have used today, and see how we can leverage it for the applications that they are hosted on the cloud, or how can we have a mix of both worlds, right? So there is no one one product fit all kind of solution. You can't do that in cybersecurity, right? You cannot say, oh, SailPoint is the best. So I'll give an example. SailPoint is the best identity and access management. Gartner identifies it as one of the best leading IAM solution, right? Do I have to sell that as a services company to every customer out there? No. Does every customer need SailPoint? If they have a requirement for an identity and access management, first I need to understand what is the scale at which they are looking at, right? I cannot give buy a Porsche to solve a auto problem, right? Their budget is very small. I'll have to help them within their needs to solve their problem statement, right? I need to give them best of both worlds. I need to give them the technology that can come in with a low budget tool, and I'll have to augment it with certain processes, augment it with certain automation to help them make what they want to do with it, right? Versus a bank which has a lot of funding available for them, that have a lot of money available. Yes, a SailPoint tool will be best fit for them because they can achieve a lot of things with it. And SailPoint offers a lot of identity and governance administration functions, which a bank would actually need because they are always constantly on audit, right? So you need to look at the business first. You need to look at the use case first, and then start selling tools to them. Then start solving problems with a cybersecurity tool, right? What zero trust should be in an organization, right? So as I mentioned in the previous slide, right, it needs to be a business enabler. It needs to help the business strive. I cannot say, oh, I have bought in zero trust functionalities and tools. Now I'm going to have a maker checker process across all functions. Every application will have maker checker process. The person will go berserk because so many times you'll have to put authentication and authorization, right? So I'll have to come up with innovative ways for the user not to be putting his user ID or password every time, right? So as we heard in the previous session, right, where Cisco came up with an way of having passwordless authentication, right? So whether it is a fingerprint, or it is the certificate within the laptop that can authenticate, right? Or it is a token-based authentication. You need to make things simpler for the user, right? Also, you need to ensure that whether there was actually risk associated with that session, right? If me as a user, Aijaz, is using the system every day between 9 in the morning to 6 in the evening, every single day, then there is no risk, right? She's using the same set of applications she was having access to, and she's doing her job Monday to Friday. But all of a sudden, Aijaz decided to log in on a Sunday night at 3 a.m. That's a risk, right? That's when you need to block her accesses, right? That's when you need to check and identify how can you stop, or how can you measure that risk associated with it, right? So you need to look at the problem holistically, right? It is an architectural state of mind, right? Like I mentioned in the previous example where we were trying to sell SailPoint, right? You need to see what the business is, what is the budget that they are looking at, what is the problem that you're trying to solve for them. Do they even need that fancy kind of a tool to solve their problems? Or it can be mitigated with even a simple process, right? It doesn't mean that for everything you need to bring in a tool, right? It can be a simple manual process also that you can bring in if the number of users are not high to ensure security, right? You need to think out of the box and see how best you can help the customer to mitigate the issues, right? There is no security difference between internet and intranet. So we discussed, right, that internet, you need to change the mindset that there is no intranet going to happen anymore. It is going to be, everything's going to be internet, right? A combination of process and technologies, right? So it is not just, oh, I'll just bring tool, and I'll solve all the problems. So if they have IAM problem, I'll bring a tool. If the privileged access management, I'll bring a tool. If they have a data loss prevention problem, I'll bring a DLP tool. If they want to have mobile management, I'll bring a tool. That is not how you should look at it, right? You should look at processes. These tools don't work on their own. It is not that you install and configure it and things will work. You need to understand the business, right? How these tools will only work when they are integrated with a wide set of enterprise applications. So for example, an IAM tool, how does that function? It takes information from HR system, which is the source system, right? That, okay, a new user has come within the IAM solution, right? It will create a set of processes for it, right? That, okay, Aijaz is a new joiner, so she needs to have access to emails, she needs to have access to her company portal, she needs to have access to her payroll, she needs to have access to X number of things, right? And then my accesses will be provisioned onto downstream applications. My accesses will be given to Active Directory. And so this is how my organization would work. Some other organization will have a different set of joiner mover lever processes, right? So you need to first define the process. That's one. Second is you need to define the roles, right? You must have, I'm sure in your curriculum you would have heard about role-based access control, attribute-based access control, policy-based access control, right? So role-based access control is at least the bare minimum that you should have within your organization. You cannot go with Active Directory group-based what do you say, access controls, right? Okay, I will create a group in AD and then I will give access to A, B, C manually. That will not work, right? You need to have the organization as adaptive as possible, right? So instead of doing that, you will simply create roles, right? You will create roles, and now a lot of organizations are moving to policy and attribute-based access control. So they will have these attributes defined that, okay, Aijaz lives out of India. She works in these hours. She has access to ABC, right? There are certain attributes associated with me. If I am not meeting any of those attributes and I'm trying to access something of those attributes, then that's an alert in the system, right? So it is just not the tool cannot imagine on its own, right? It is only an enabler. You need to take that tool and apply it to an organization, right? So if in the future you are learning new tools and technologies as a part of, improving your skill set, you need to think in that aspect. Just don't think, oh, I have learned this tool integrates with AD like this tool integrates with an HR system like this tool will integrate with the backend application like this. Don't go with that mindset, right? Think what a business is having, what kind of use cases a business could have, and how this tool can enable their business, right? Always have that mindset. A unified experience and greater flexibility and productivity for staff and partners, right? As I mentioned, you cannot expect users to constantly put authentication and authorization, passwords all the time, right? At one point, that's what even I used to do when I was, about 10 years ago. So when you come to the office, you will have at least 5 passwords to put in, and those it was a very daunting task, right? Because your Windows AD domain will have one password, your email will have one password, your company portal will have one password, your medical insurance portal will have one password, and those passwords have to be changed every 30 days. They need to be alphanumeric. They should have a special character, lot of information, and you can't you can't write it in a book. It's against the policies, or you cannot just put a sticky note on your laptop. There's no point in doing all of that, right? So there used to be a lot of push from the organization, but later on, even the organization realized that is not a productive way, right? How can people remember? And people used to start forgetting the password. Every now and then there used to be a ticket. We had to raise a ticket for, oh, I forgot my password. Right? How is this productive, right? If I forgot my password and I can't access email for the whole day, I'm not productive, right? It's a loss to the organization, right? That one day worth of job just went to waste, right? So how now the organizations now started to push to single sign-on, where everything Microsoft Azure AD, Office 360 were finally integrated, and now people can just put one password and get their job to it, right? And even that has been trying to move to just putting username and putting an OTP that gets displayed on your phone, right? And that solves so many problems, right? That reduces all the pressure that I forgot my password, and I'm not able to do my work, and my manager is sitting on my head to get the task done, right? So you need to ensure security, but at the same time enable the user. The end user is at the brunt of your security implementation. Zero trust. So let's now understand how would you implement zero trust and what are its key principles. So zero trust principles are based on these these four primary functionalities, right? You're trying to protect identities, you're trying to protect devices, you're trying to protect network, you're trying to protect workloads. Workloads nothing but your cloud platforms. Okay, so these are the four primary. There can be more, but more or less they will get bucketed in one of these four containers, right? And data is at the center of this. Now, when I say data, it's the information that is shared across these four buckets, right? So if an identity is trying to access an application that is sitting on an infrastructure, then that data needs to be protected, right? A device is trying to access something from some other device or is trying to access from some other application, that conversation needs to be protected, right? And an application or a document which is at rest, say you made a document, you're sending it to your customer, right? That information that is going to be shared between your machine to the machine of the customer, that needs to be protected, right? So you need to classify the documentation, you need to protect the documentation. So all of that, every attack surface in your organization needs to be protected, right? So how would you start, right? So first thing you would do is resource visibility. You need to understand how many resources are there in your organization. So what is resources? Resources is the number of devices, resources the number of identities, resources are the number of endpoints, right? How would you do that? Right? You would do a data discovery. You would do a data discovery classification. You would do something called as CMDB, right? CMDBs is our machines or databases within an organization that keeps the data of all the entities within the organization. So any laptop, desktop, device, that information will be available within the CMDB. So you need to first look into the CMDB, right? And you need to do a discovery that, okay, these are so many systems I want to protect. Now, a basic thumb rule, say suppose you don't have a CMDB, and this is what I learned on the job, is if I have 20,000 users, right, then I would do it 1.5 times. So it will be 30,000 devices. So their laptops, their machines, and their devices, on an average, 30,000 would be the number of devices that would be coming into your organization. Okay. Next is data-centric security, right? So move the security from the boundary towards the data, right? So you will use things like DLP, right? So data loss prevention solutions. You will use database activity monitoring, because that is where your actual data is going to be stored, right? So whenever any data is moving within the organization, outside the organization, you will put controls around it, right? You will not put control around the organization. Principle of least privilege. Okay, what is principle of least privilege? You need to give the leastest possible access that you can provide. Nobody should be given more access, and this has been a problem within the organization inherently, right? How people used to give accesses. So first of all, you will get the accesses that you have, like, okay, I joined in the organization, I got my access, right? Now I move from department A to department B, right? My accesses from department A should have gone away, right? And only the accesses for department B should have been given to me. Most organizations will only look at that when there is an audit, right? So I would have had access of department A and B, and there is a problem of access aggregation, right? So you need to, as a cybersecurity professional, you need to always suggest or always propose for reduction or reducing and giving least privileges to the user, and bring the concept of least privilege, right? And all of this actually can be automated today with the tools, with the identity and access management, identity governance administration tools, even for that matter, PAN, right? In most organizations, till date, I see this happening every single day, where a lot of the Windows servers, the Unix, Linux databases, the IT department systems there was to be no access or security put around it, or because an IT user needs to have access to everything. Why does an IT user need to have access to everything? He needs to have access only to the things that he needs to have access to, right? So now privileged access management solutions have become the next big thing, right? So every click of a button, every mouse move can be logged, monitored using privileged access management. Because in recent times, we have seen, or the industry has seen, that a lot of malicious users are within the organization and within the IT department, because they used to have access to everything, right? Nobody will go and block their accesses. They'll say, how will they do their work, right? So now that is no more the norm, right? Every organization is expected, or at least if they have a significant amount of workloads, they should have a privileged access management solution in place, even if they don't do session monitoring, right? They cannot have direct access to the password. So you cannot continue to use your database with Scott Tiger login or root login. No, that shouldn't be the norm. Every user within a privilege, even if it's a privileged user, should use a password for a limited amount of time, and that password needs to be rotated, right? So least privilege, right? There's one other enforcement, that is segregation of duties. I think most of them are sleeping, so I'm going to ask the question to the audience now. Can somebody give me an example of segregation of duties? Anybody can give me an example of what segregation of duties is? No, nobody? A very simple example I'll give. I'll give you another 2 seconds. Anybody wants to answer? No? Okay. No answer. Okay, fine. Segregation of duties is that the requester and the approver cannot be the same person. In most organizations, what happens is I am the one who is raising the ticket and I'm the one who is approving the ticket. It cannot happen, right? The person who has raised the request, the person who has approved the request, and the manager on top of that request have to be 3 different people, right? But when the organizations are so small, and their organizations are like, oh, the IT department sits right next to me, right? I don't need some approval to come from some big shot, right? I can just do it. It's a very small. I just need a small application to get installed on my computer. I will just do it myself, right? As a process, it needs to be enforced that if I am the person who's raising the request, I cannot be the approver to approve the same request. Okay. Never trust, always verify, right? So as I mentioned, we need to constantly authenticate, authorize across the organization, right? You need to do a context-aware, risk-based adaptive access management or web access management, even if you don't want to get the fancy tools, right? What is context-aware? Like I mentioned, right, that I am working within these so many hours. That is my context, right? The system understand that Aijaz works during these hours. She doesn't work at 3 in the night, right? Or she will not log in from London 5 minutes after she has logged in from India. That is not possible. She cannot time travel, right? So doing all these checks, having this risk driver within the organization can help eliminate those risks. And then last is zero attack surface. So instead of putting a big perimeter around the organization, you need to start looking at your organization into bits and pieces. You start with what is my organization's crown jewel. What is a crown jewel? A crown jewel are key applications within an organization. Okay, so Active Directory, SAP, HR systems, applications on which the company's business actually works on. So whether it is a payroll system or it is an ordering system where people can order stuff from it. So these are very critical applications, right? If this gets disrupted, the business will get disrupted, right? But if it is an application that has been created within an organization that can help you post classified ads within your organization, oh, I have a car to sell, I have a house to put on rent, so that I get benefit from sharing this information. That doesn't need a lot of network segmentation, right? So you need to first identify what the crown jewels are and try to reduce the traffic as much as possible. Try to put the boundaries associated with as much as possible so that you are protecting and doing micro segmentation on those crown jewels. That is one example. The another example which I heard recently was this person, he was a CISO of AstraZeneca. And he gave a very interesting example of micro segmentation, right? So they were doing an organization-wide change within AstraZeneca, and they found certain vulnerabilities within the organization. So what was the vulnerability? The vulnerability was that within the organization, there were 9 Windows XP machines. So Windows XP is that old operating system that we used to work on, 32-bit operating system, right? It's having so many vulnerabilities, it has already gone obsolete, right? Windows also doesn't, Microsoft also doesn't support, right? So why is it there in the organization, right? It should be removed, right? When they looked into the problem statement, they realized that 8 could be removed, but 1 couldn't be removed at all, because that Windows XP machine was connected to a highly, a very large microscope, right? That was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that application that spoke to that microscope was a 32-bit application. Now, how do we solve that problem? Because removing XP is a very fair price, right? It's about $100 of licenses, $80 to $100 of license. But something like a microscope, which is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, how do you do it, right? Now you can't do anything about it because that is an asset of the organization. You will have to keep the legacy of that legacy system within the organization. So they decided to put a small firewall in front of that system in order to ensure that no no attacks happen, and reduce, bounded by several processes and policies to ensure that only the bare minimum information that was required would be sent and pulled out of that microscope at the application, right? So this is how you should look at it, right? One more example that I'd like to give, right? Recently, we were working for a school, a kindergarten school. They have schools across Europe, right? And they had bought Microsoft solution for multi-factor authentication. And TCS was helping them implement that solution for them. Now, there was a challenge at hand, right? They had reached a 95% of multi-factor authentication adoption. So about 95% of employees or systems were had already adopted. 5% of the machines couldn't adopt it, right? So there was a challenge at hand because those 5% machines were used in classrooms, and they were all shared accounts. So it was one Microsoft Office license that was used with various teachers, right? So this is one login. Now, if I come as a teacher in the morning and I log in, then the way multi-factor authentication on Microsoft works is that it will send you a phone call, or it will give you an OTP. It will send on my phone and I have to authenticate. Now, because it's a shared, now on whose phone will it come? Because now there are 3 teachers who are going to access it, right? So what do we do? So this will not work, right? Second option, we thought that, okay, can we put token, right? Can we give them a hardware token to log in into those machines? But first thing is we'll have to integrate the token system that we will procure for them from the Azure solution with that token. So whatever the demand to our RSA token required for them. Second is it's an expensive solution, right? They are a school, they don't have a budget. What do we do next, right? Can we have a Spock within the or a center who will just pick up the call and accept the authentication? What if that Spock doesn't show up that day, right? So it was, what finally was done is for certain set, they still managed to have a Spock. And for the certain set, we had to actually remove those systems from the network and keep them aside. Now you'll say, is that the right thing to do because you removed a system and you left it for opened it for an attack surface, right? But understand what is that you're trying to protect, right? It's the kindergarten school application. There is no IP information within it. They were not sharing any critical data within that. And it was not even a privileged system. They were just using that system to project, what you say, the basic, the documents that they wanted to show to the kids, right? The curriculum, that's what I was looking for. It was just used for curriculum, right? So you need to look at how can you ensure the business continue to run and come up with ways, and sometimes even look the other way in order for the business to work, right? So you need to assess the criticality of the system. What is that you're trying to protect, right? If you're making a house for a civilian or versus you're making a building for an army system, right? There are two different kinds of security systems that you will bring in, right? For a normal house, you'll bring in a locks and keys. For a fancy, for an army or an air force building, you will bring up the world's best security solutions that you have to offer, right? So you need to look at what you're trying to protect and then come up with security solutions. Now, this was the most simplest zero trust architecture diagram that I could get on the internet for you, right? So you can see all the functionalities that I mentioned in the previous slide, right? So you have identities. Let me open the mouse pointer. Yeah. So you have identities, you have devices, you have data, you have infrastructure, network, workloads all over here, right? So how would you start protecting it, right? Now, this is not a boundary-based architecture, right? This is an internet-based architecture. Okay, why is it not showing? So you first start with resource visibility. So this thing, the device inventory, will start pulling the number of endpoints and devices that are there. So the number of devices, corporate devices, unmanaged devices. So unmanaged devices, something like your mobile phone, BYOD, or your contractor's laptops, right? And identity. So you are trying to manage it via device inventory, right? Next, you're doing least privilege. Least privilege, so you are bringing in a centralized policy across all identities and applications and defining those policies centrally. So IAM is an IGA PAM solutions where you will place them, right? Never trust, always verify. So you are doing multi-factor authentication for identities. For device, you might have a certificate. For applications, you will do an adaptive access, right? Risk driven, right? So you will have your threat intelligence team sitting here, right? So you can have a manual threat intelligence, you can have an automated threat intelligence. So manual will be something like a manual threat intelligence is what you call a SOC, right? So what is there, what do they do is they look at all monitoring systems in real time. So they're actually people sitting in an office continuously looking at the screen and identifying if there is a threat in the organization. A lot of banks, a lot of BFSI customers do that, have SOC within their organization. A lot of other customers, though, who don't need SOC, will go with something called a SIM solution. So it is nothing but an event management solution. So what it does, it pulls logs from all the systems, it aggregates it, and then it has a certain set of rules that will run through, right? If it finds something that is not right, it will alert the system, right? And there's something even better than SIM that's called a SOAR that is done real time or automated risk analysis in real time. So it will continue to learn as it is within your organization. So you can have different types of threat intelligence sitting within your organization. And zero attack surface, right? So we have put controls across all systems appropriately so that you don't have left, you have not left any room for attack, right? Because what happens is certain organizations will just look at one set, oh, I have protected my on-premise. Cloud ka pata nahi hai kya hua hai, because they don't even know how to protect it, right? Or if a new kind of a system comes into the play, right? If the customer is a Microsoft shop and now their partners are having MacBooks. Now the Microsoft Intune solution doesn't understand Mac operating system. What do you do there? All right. So you need to look at the problem holistically, right? And last is data centric. So the data is the heart of the solution, right? So you need to look at it from data that is getting exchanged, data that is going in and out of your organization, data that is being exchanged within the organization, within the identities, within the devices, within the network, within the infrastructure. You need to look at it holistically. Right? Some best practices for zero trust adoption, right? Focus on cyber hygiene, right? What do you mean by focusing on cyber hygiene? You need to first start with a clear slate, right? You need to remove people with aggregated access. So first, whenever we do any cybersecurity program, it is always suggested you first do cyber hygiene. So you clean the data, you remove orphan accounts. So what is an orphan account? I have left the organization, my access is still within the organization. If I open the application, you'll still see a person is having access to that application, right? That's an orphan account. So you need to clear up that. First of all, orphan account shouldn't be there, but if it is there, it has to be removed, right? So that is cyber hygiene. Then the second part is holistic zero trust strategy. So you need to look at all the principles. I mean, you need to look at all the investments that the customer has already made. Can you reuse? Can you leverage what they already have? Okay, they have something. Can I extend something on top of it? Instead of telling you just remove and bring new, that will never work, because cybersecurity is one of the most expensive offer the most expensive set of tools, and even the services come at a very high cost. So no customer is willing to do that, right? An average, if a customer hires a cybersecurity professional from a product company, so say suppose somebody is coming from Cisco, somebody is coming from Palo Alto, somebody is coming from Microsoft to implement these tools, they will charge $2,000 a day. That's a lot of money to pay just to implement a solution that they have bought, which they have already paid thousands of dollars, right? That is why they come to services company. So services company will say, yeah, I will do that the same. I will, do the same what the product company will do, but I will do it at half the cost. But even at half the cost, it is a lot of money, because if you go look at non-cybersecurity functions, they are even 1/8 the cost of effort, right? Somebody who is doing an application development, or somebody is doing other non-cybersecurity technologies, the actual cost given to the customer is even 1/4 or 1/8 of what is a cybersecurity professional would be costed to the customer, right? So you need to be very mindful as a cybersecurity professional as to what you're trying to sell to the customer, right? Inbuilt security controls, right? So you need to look at it from the beginning of an engagement, right? What happens in most organizations, first they'll focus on the business, and then they'll like, oh, we have some budget for security, now let's do security. That doesn't work. You shouldn't, no organization should look at, and that is not how you should portray to that customer. Security should be, today there is a need that security is a part of the organization journey. So as the business is growing, the security levels of the organization should also continue to grow, right? Continuously review and enhance. So you need to continuously evaluate the risk. You need to continuously evaluate the tools, the functionalities that you have brought in, whether they are vulnerabilities within the environment, whether they need patch, whether they need upgrade, right? And frictionless user experience, right? In all of this, you shouldn't forget the user. You shouldn't put so many controls, right, for the user that he is unable to do his job, right? Because at the end, it's the user who is the consumer of your cybersecurity, right? And if he or she is not able to do their job, then you have missed the point, right? So these are some of the best practices that you should ensure when you're doing a zero trust adoption. Do I have some more time to take a case study, or I will stop now? Do I have some more time to take a case study? Or are there any questions?
Participants, you all are free to ask any questions. Yeah, Kirtana has. Kirtana, you can unmute yourself and you can ask the question.
You can share case studies is what I got on the chat.
Okay, you can share case studies.
Okay, fine. All right, let me finish the case studies. And then if you have any questions not related to zero trust, not related to this topic, you have any career questions, aspirational questions, IAM related questions, you can answer that as well. Okay. So this was a recent engagement. So this Norwegian chemical company, they make fertilizers. They are one of the largest fertilizer company and in Norway. And they have been with us for over 5 years now. When they came to us, right, that was when they wanted to implement the Microsoft solution in their environment. And Microsoft is a very notorious organization. They will sell anything and everything possible. I hope there are no Microsoft people in this meeting. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but yes, Microsoft are very good bunch of people who can sell a lot of tools and technologies, and they're great salesmen, and they managed to sell this particular company with all the Microsoft tools. So as I mentioned, services is definitely expensive. They come to a service company like ours, and they want the solution to be implemented and adapted across organizations. So yes, we implemented security for them at all levels. That time we were not working from a zero trust point. We were just implementing some tools and technologies that they were interested to do that, right? So they wanted identity manager to be implemented. So we implemented the Microsoft Identity Manager. So if you buy an Azure P1, P2 license, MIM, which is a Microsoft Identity Manager, comes bundled. So you don't pay for the license. So that way, Microsoft is very notorious. So what they do is you buy this and you get A, B, C free, right? And now people want to say, oh, this free vagara sub implement karke do, right? So we implemented the Microsoft Identity Manager. We implemented the Intune solution, which I think used to also come free at that point in time to do all the device management. We also brought in a lot of, leveraged the threat detection functionalities that Microsoft had to offer. We did a lot of, we also enabled the Microsoft Protection Program that does the classification of documents, right? So we implemented, and that was their asks. Now, last year they came to us and they said they wanted to move to a zero trust architecture, which again, Microsoft had sold them that. So if you open Microsoft's website, right, and you search for zero trust assessment, you will find a set of questions on the internet where Microsoft asks you whether your organization has this issue, that issue, does your there's a bunch of 8 or 10 odd questions, right? And once you answer them, they give you a list of functionalities that you need to implement as a part of your organization, right? So they took that Microsoft assessment along with Microsoft, and they, since we were their services partner, they said, look, TCS, you need to help us with zero trust. So firstly, we had to make them aware that zero trust is not a technology, is not a tool, and Microsoft is not that tool. So we had to make them aware of that, like this, like what I did this awareness session for you, right? So what if you are basing your zero trust knowledge based on that Microsoft assessment that you have taken, then you are not understanding what you are getting into, right? So first you need to understand that zero trust is a set of design principles, and that what we made them aware of when we help them understand what NIST, Forrester, Gartner presents zero trust as, and how they should look at it holistically rather than a tool that Microsoft is selling, right? So that was the first thing that we had to do as a part of the assessment. Second thing is we had to look into individually the tools that they had brought from Microsoft and help them mitigate the issues that they had. The first thing was that they had established MIM, which means we had established MIM for them, that is a Microsoft Identity Manager, and it was working fine. So employees, contractors, vendors could all get managed through my identity management solution. But the challenge with the Microsoft Identity Management solution is, one, it doesn't has governance administration within that tool. While it's a good tool, and most Microsoft tools are, but the problem is Microsoft tools work very well with other Microsoft tools. But if I bring an SAP system, if I bring a non-Microsoft tool, that's when the challenge starts. Okay? So they did not the tool inherently did not have any identity governance and administration. So how they used to do their audit was, every application owner would do their own audit. So they would bi-yearly or yearly, they would just sit and remove an Excel sheet, and then they used to manually sit and do, okay, Aijaz is no longer in the company, remove her access. Aditi is in the organization, she uses this application, okay, she last logged in on X date, okay, she's using the application, give her access. So they will sit and do this manual work, and every application owner will sit and do this manual task, right? So when an audit happens, they will give their Excel sheets and say, oh, we have done the audit. But that shouldn't be the way it should be, right? How will a CISO know what is the risk associated with the accesses given in the organization, right? How many orphan accounts are there within the organization? How many aggregated accesses have been given in the organization, right? So they need to have a centralized view of what identities are having access to. So an identity governance administration tool can solve those problems for you. And hence we suggested to them that instead of MIM, they should look at to another IGA tool, or just look at purchasing a governance administration tool to mitigate that challenge, right? The next thing that they had in the problem statement was that the Microsoft tool offers privileged identity management, but only for cloud components. So that is great. They are having a privileged identity management solution for the cloud. But what about the functions that are systems that are sitting on premise? Because they had a lot of on-premise systems. So they had Unix, Linux systems, they had databases, they had storage and printers as well, right? So they also need to be protected, right? And they were using very rudimentary ways of doing. So they used to use the Linux, Unix, you have a thing called a sudo, right? So they were using those methods to ensure privileged accesses can be reduced, but that is not something that is sustainable in the long run. So we suggest that you look at bringing in a PAM solution that can look at privileges both on the cloud as well as on premise. So we solved the identity related issue, right? The device related issue, they had the Intune solution, it was working fine, right? But a lot of applications weren't getting managed via that, right? So you're only managing the device, but you don't know what application is pulling information, what information is sent across the different devices, right? And you don't have visibility just with Intune. So you better have a MAM in place to solve those issues, right? Protective monitoring and threat vulnerabilities that they had. So they had a threat management system within the infrastructure, right? But what is the next best thing that they could have, right? So one is that they could look at some sort of an automation. So instead of having people manually sitting and looking into your threat, right? Rather than look at how can you automate it, right? This way your services cost will reduce, right? Then how can you reduce or how can you protect your containers, right? Containers, Dockers, serverless systems, right? Because now most of the organizations have moved into CI/CD kind of model, where they use containerization to run applications, right? So those containers also needs to be protected, because you have to have a way where the container can use the passwords. Say, suppose if a container is trying to access a database, you shouldn't be writing in a TXT file or in a config file those username and password and storing it. That is the wrong way of doing it, right? Rather, a privileged access management solution will pull the information at runtime and provide it to the Docker system, right? And cloud workload protection, right? Similarly, for network, they had the perimeterization that they had, and it was for all applications, for all infrastructure and networks that they had on site, right? So instead of going with that, we said first look at your crown jewels. How can you divide your network in such a way that this is very important, this has to be protected well, this is least important, we will look at it in a different way, right? And you segment your perimeter in a different way, right? The last is data, right? So a lot of data, they had a standard Microsoft protection program, and we said that you can look at bringing in some automation. So when a document is going from one place to another, on the fly, a lot of sensitization can happen for it, where you can do the tagging, labeling. You can identify whether it's a confidential document, it's an internal document, sensitive document, and this way you can protect the information within the organization. So these are some of the recommended solutions, and the customer was made aware that just by buying a Microsoft solution, where I'm not bad mouthing them, but just having one tool is going to solve my problem, or a bunch of tools from a given vendor is going to make me zero trust. That is not going to happen, right? So this was an assessment made for them, and a certain of our recommendations were accepted, and a few of these projects have started. So yes, that brings me to the end of the session. And is there any questions? Let me stop sharing my screen. Yeah, are there any questions?
There is a question, Aijaz, in the chat box. There's a question from Kirtana. Is there any threat modeling tools for SDN? This is a question.
Is there any threat modeling tools for your software defined network is what you're asking, right?
Yeah, that's what.
Right. So yes, all of these tools, your SIEM tools, so your Splunk, QRadar, all of these tools will pull logs from all of your endpoints and centralizedly manage these. So there is some tools like Rapid7, there is tools like Splunk, right? And all of these tools can help you achieve that functionality. Are there any other further questions?
If any participant wants to ask, they can feel free and ask.
Is there any question not associated with zero trust? If you have any other questions.
Actually, I have a question, Aijaz.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to know, like what are the hottest topics for research in security, or how can one go ahead with this? Because security is very wide platform, and we'll be stuck where to start with actually, or which algorithm to pick. There's so many. So how can we just take the first step?
How do we take the first step? What is the hottest topic? So yes, zero trust is one of the hottest topic out there, that even as an organization we are pushing it, right?
Okay.
A lot of what do you say? A lot of emphasis is not so in real time in businesses, right? Because I work with businesses for a living, right? Is not about which is the hottest algorithm out there, right? Because from a business standpoint, can you solve my security problem, right? Or which is the latest Gartner identified. So Gartner comes up with these tables or these quadrants, right? They call this as quadrants, right? And they come up with a set of series of tools that it has identified for that year is one of the best tools, right? And what are the functionalities that this tool is offering over the others, right? So the algorithms or whatever we learned in colleges, right? Whether it was a SHA-1, SHA-2, or it was PKI, right? PKI was one of my favorite topics when I was studying in college, right? But it is more about how do you actually implement it rather than what it does internally, because that is a problem that has already been solved, right? So how do you implement it is what businesses look at, right? How can I get the next fancy tool out there in my organization? Right? So that is one. The second thing is you can look at the vulnerabilities as and when that they're coming up, right? So a lot of discussion or a lot of ransomware is something that is a problem or a challenge to look at, right? And how the next level of encryption, how IPv6, how 5G is what is going to come next, and how it is going to cause issues, right? Like, because you have a faster speed internet, right? Now DDoS, brute force attacks will be even faster to break, right? So how can you ensure that your environment is not getting hit or is not getting attacked by these malicious users, right? Then a lot of, as I've mentioned, right, a lot of malicious users are there within the organization, right? And that is why zero trust became so much important as well, right? So that you need to constantly check, constantly identify, and constantly verify, right? Because what used to happen that the malicious user lived, was breathing nicely within the organization, but was never identified. So I think these are some of the key areas that we are looking at. That's one. Second is, from an organization standpoint, a lot of focus has been on how cybersecurity can be offered as a SaaS, right? And everybody wants SaaS, right? How cybersecurity is given. So how our organization does is that we bundle everything. So the tool, the licenses, the functionality, the implementation, and the manpower that is required to implement this service. All of that is bundled and offered to the customer as a service, versus just a few years ago, the customer used to buy the infrastructure, used to buy the license, then used to find a services person. That services person used to come and implement it, and then that services person used to manage the cybersecurity solution, because you will continuously have vulnerabilities, you continuously have to have patching. A new threat came, you have to patch the solution, right? So this is how it used to happen. But now organizations, because of this change of cloud and everything, people want to, organization says that, can I get cybersecurity as a SaaS? Like Netflix, can I just pay per month, right? So I pay monthly basis for X number of identities, and I want everything end to end. So how do we deliver that, right? So we came up with a model where we have configured everything in the AWS cloud, and depending on the customer we are working. So in the US it becomes easier because AWS is well hosted there, but in Europe it becomes a challenge because Europe has the GDPR law, and as per that law, the data residency is a challenge, right? So if some customer is saying that I want data to be resided within my country only, then we'll have to come up with a look for a next data center. So okay, Azure is well placed in Europe, so we'll have to move that functionality in Europe just for that particular customer. So yeah, so these are some of the changes in the industry. These are the top changes that I am seeing as a trend, and where customers are coming in and looking for these problem solutions.
Yeah. Thank you, Aijaz. I think I had a broader way of understanding it. Thank you so much. Okay, we have one more question from Kitana. Is there any materials to learn threat modeling Splunk?
Threat modeling. We want to learn threat modeling. Okay. I'll have to look into that. Probably, can you leave me your email ID on the chat, and let me look into some materials and share with you, because I can help you with a lot of identity and access management material, because that's my forte. But Splunk is something that I will have to check with my colleagues and get back to you.
Is there any other questions?
Okay, thank you, Kitana.
Kitana has left her mail ID. I will also be communicating with you, Aijaz, I think, in future.
Sure, please do. I had also a wonderful session chatting and talking about my experience and how things actually work in real life, and how businesses look at it. Because for me also, when I picked up this role within my organization, it was an eye-opening thing, because I used to be, so when I started, I used to be a developer myself when I started working in PKI, and I used to only look at the problem. Oh, this is the algorithm, this is the problem, and this is how we have to solve it. And reading all the NIST documents is what I used to do that. But when I moved into more of a sales kind of a role is when I saw the bigger picture, and it was eye-opening at how you perceive security before you have moved into that role. That like, okay, people must be treating you as a crown on the head, because security is absolutely important, but that is not how businesses work, and you have to push them to make them understand that why security is so much important.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Thank you so much, Aijaz. It was a wonderful, wonderful session. If I start from the knowledge, the impact, the energy, the dynamics that you brought in, and the way you were explaining every point, it was just not to the point, going deep down. It was just wonderful. I mean, if anybody, yes, if anybody will have not looked into security, I think definitely your session is an eye opener.
All right. I hope it was helpful. And yes.
Your Kirtana is asking if you could provide her with your mail ID, and
yes, you can. Kirtana, you can reach me out at
Aijaz, this is Vishal.
yes,
Hi.
Vishal.
So I heard like you are working as a part of like sales team. So I think you are the right candidate to answer this question for me.
Okay. Okay. Ask her.
So okay, so the question is like, what you prefer to your clients, like when it comes to the zero trust model, the high, like the multi-vendor model, or you prefer to go for a big, like a big Microsoft shop or McAfee shop? What you prefer to your customers?
Right. So I don't know whether you saw the case study that I presented, right? That was for a Norwegian chemical company, and that company was a Microsoft shop.
Yeah.
Right. And they had inherently felt that Microsoft hai, to bas our lives are set, right? But as an organization, right, as a cybersecurity organization, we need to make them understand that it is not one tool solves all your problems kind of a thing. And we also, as practitioners, don't go with one tool. The way my boss taught me, that always go with the tool agnostic view, right? Forget the tool. Tool will come in later. First, see what is the business problem, what is the business wanting, what is the use case you want to solve, and then you apply the tool on top. Once you have your process, once you have your business case and your use case that you try to solve, the tool will just an enabler. So whether the customer goes with a Microsoft, or the customer goes with the SailPoint, or the customer goes with the Dell, IBM, Oracle, there are millions of tools out there, right? It is not about the tools. I'll give you one more example, right? We were working for this customer. They are what is that? The hiring agency there. They are one of the largest in the world, right? And they had 40 IAM tools in their environment. And when we went and assisted, and we saw they have, I'm like, why do they have 40 identity and access management tools within their environment? What is the challenge? And then when we started questioning the customer and we started understanding their business model, we understood that the customer, the way they used to work is, they were in a business where they were into merger and acquisition. So they will acquire one company, they'll acquire another company. And what happens with this acquiring business, that the company that they acquired will come with its own tool. They acquired a second company, the second company came with the next. And this way they had 40 identity and access management tools. But even with so many tools in their environment, they used to get about 20,000 tickets only for identity and access management in a given month. From the standards that I have been seeing for such a long time, for any average customer, even if it is at the scale, you cannot get more than 1,000 to 2,000 tickets in a given month. And this was 20x with 40 tools in their environment. And the way data used to flow is, say I came from this company and I'm still using that tool. So my access will go from this tool, then it will go to that tool, and then it will go to the central tool, right? And so many checks and no use. There is no central vision. There is no central identity in governance, even though they had the best tool that is available in the market. That was SailPoint. So one of the tools that they had within the list of the tools, which was from Microsoft and many other vendors, they also had SailPoint Identity and IQ solution, which is identified as the best solution as per Gartner. Right? Even with that tool in their environment, which they had for the last 6 years, they were still having so many tickets, right? And then we had to work in an IAM simplification program where we started removing obsolete solutions. We started, reducing the consumptions. We said, okay, if this functionality is available in this tool, and both the tools will move to SailPoint. Okay, ये उससे SailPoint से हो सकता है, let's move it here. Right? And slowly it took about 1 year just to remove those 40 tools. Right? So you cannot say that, if the customer has one tool, though, or they have bought the best tool in the market and they wouldn't have problems. This customer had a gamut of problems, right? And to manage those 20,000 tickets in a month, they had 60 people in their environment, right? So they were paying for the tools, they were paying for 60 people,
Tickets.
they were paying for the problems that they were getting with the number of tools, right? So it was insane. Why would you do that? इतना पैसा है तो कहीं और डालो, तुम्हारे business में डालो.
Right. So because we are also just like since last couple of years, we are like most of the workforce is working from home. So we are now moving to the zero trust model, and we are just doing the POC of the Zscaler. So I thought of like so I thought of like just have a view from your side, like because I know you met with several vendors and see how they work. So do you have any report about Zscaler, how they perform? Like so far, I really
Zscaler
like.
is one of the best tools out there,
Yeah.
and good that you are doing that POC. And as I mentioned in one of during the session, right? If you are working on any of these tools, so when you're doing POCs and implementing and trying to work it out, try to read case studies of Zscaler and see what were the problems that they were trying to solve, and then try to put it in that POC, because then you will have an actual understanding of what Zscaler is actually trying to do, right? Versus just reading the manual and trying to configure it and okay, can I integrate with AD, or can I integrate with an X application or a database, right? So look at that, and that will actually add value to your knowledge. That's my speech.
Thank you. Thanks. So thanks for like putting all this together on a single platform. This is really helpful for us. Thank you.
Okay, all right. I think I'm up for the hour. Thank you all for giving me this opportunity and to share my thoughts and experiences with you. And yes, Skip and I will come back to you on your question.
Thank you so much, Aijaz. It was a wonderful, wonderful session, and hoping to continue this journey with us in near future as well.